You are listening to the new man beyond the macho jerk and the new age wimp. Your host is men's coach Tripp Lanier.
Do you think more success and status are the keys to lasting fulfillment? What happens when our achievements leave us feeling empty? And what does it mean to be dangerous? Today, my wife Alyson and I explore a life beyond constant comfort and how most men are stuck in a trap, striving to play a game they can't win.
I have to pee.
Okay. It's amazing. These microphones are able to pick up all the sounds.
Stop it.
They did.
Stop
I recorded all the sounds you just made in the toilet.
Peeing. Blow my nose.
Oh, what would we think if we heard the sounds?
They're gonna.
There were other sounds too.
It's body functions. I'm in the right place to do what I'm doing. So it's up to you. How uncomfortable are you going to be with it?
I just wanted to see how you would react.
Am I blushing?
You're like, damn it.
I'm looking at the little recording there. I'm like, oh, that was probably where I farted.
Well, I actually didn't record it.
Where I blew my nose.
I didn't record it.
Oh, you did? Now you gotta
But
get
now we're you just
I'm in my discomfort.
You're it. What will we think of you that you had gas?
True. It's like this moment of discomfort that I'm like, oh, it's so silly.
But that's it, right? There's a part where we could be like, we could see somebody else going through their self-image stuff.
I'm endeared to it. I actually love that so much. That's like the trueness of humanness.
Right, but we can see somebody else going through it and be like, that's so silly. They don't need to take themselves that seriously, but it can seem so like our thing is like, oh no, but I will never let anybody hear me fart, right? I will never let anybody see me without my makeup on or whatever that thing is that we are so attached to. And for one person, it'll be no big deal. And for another person, it'll feel like death. It'll be that huge thing. So
it's innervated. Like it's in our deepest brains and our nervous systems. And for some people, it is real. Yeah. That is a real threat. Like it is, even if it's imagined, everybody else around them is like, you look fine. That is, look, what you just said, it's like, it is real. It is life or death, real. And that's not necessarily ego. That lives in our bodies in a way where, that's what keeps people where they're at in a lot of ways. So people come to you and they're saying, I'm not that person, or I don't know how. They usually come to you with an idea of what they want, but then you're like calling them out on the discomfort, the competing commitments.
Well,
like
I don't call them out. It's just like, we're just going to work with it.
You challenge, you basically are like, great, here's the path. Take a step or two on that path. And they're like, grr.
I think I don't think that's an accurate description of my work.
Okay, well, you can describe that part. My point is that people are coming to you and they're like,
clients are not going,
they might feel that way on the inside. But it's like, I'm not that person, or I don't know how, or I can't possibly do that. That's my point. Like, that's what the is about. It's like,
there's two things, on one level, if they've had some kind of serious issue, like they've had some kind of serious trauma or something happen in their life, I'm not qualified to work with that. Sometimes we just need to try some things. We'll just do some experiments. We'll talk about what it is they want to do. And then it's like, great. What would feel expansive, right? What would feel like a step in that direction? If you were to do XYZ this coming week, what do you think would have you feel stronger? Let's see. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, great, let's go try that. And if consistently they balk at that, then I would say, I think that we need to call in somebody else to help us with this. Okay, I'm getting hung up here. Rationally, I know I should be able to do X, Y, Z, but it's not happening. I can't have this conversation, or I can't make this phone call, or I can't do this, can't go up on the stage and whatever it is. And it's like,
can't get beyond myself, can't get over myself.
Rationally, I should be able to, but it's not happening. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I do this regularly. It happens, it comes up where it's like, great, let's just bring in a pro. And
so I feel curious, would you do that if someone is that way about, instead of themselves, like, I can't get out of my own way? I mean, that's actually always the bottom line. But if they're whatever, if they're like, oh, I can't get over this obstacle or trauma or whatever, would it be the same if they're like constantly blaming others? Like, well, I try, but they this. Like, well, I try to talk to my wife, but she always just blows up. Or I try to negotiate new contracts with my colleagues, but they just won't do the thing that I want them to do. You know, like, is it the same if somebody is sort of like, I'm doing my work over here, they're just not doing theirs? Like, how do you navigate that?
I think there's if consistently they make the excuse that others are the reason for their lack of progress, it doesn't take long for the mirror to be held up for them to see that they're playing the victim.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm wondering that, like, because I remember when you hadn't yet realized you'd outgrown your current environment. You were getting really critical about it, like in Florida, and you were like this and that, and
right, what we talked about in a previous
episode.
Yeah, I was totally playing the victim. I had not adopted a mindset where I was 100% responsible for my experience and my well-being. So yeah, in that place, if I wasn't happy, well, then who's to blame? Let's go find all the bad guys. And
just a little like Zen commercial here. I used to get so irritated. I had an ex-boyfriend who was like, I'm sorry you feel that way. And I would be like, you're fucking making me feel this way. Like, you just did this thing that's having me feel this way. And he's like, you're responsible for your everything.
Right. Which is like, I'm responsible to pack my shit and get out of here.
Yeah. Or come at it in a different way, or choose other skills.
Or to ask and say, I would like to have a conversation about this behavior. Like there's definitely kind of thing.
But that's a new, it's like that. We're glazing over it like it's really simple, but that's actually a big deal, because people do not believe or agree that they are solely responsible for their emotional experience.
Let's be really clear, right? We're solely responsible in the sense that if we find ourselves with assholes and we don't like the experience of being with assholes, it's not the asshole's job to change. I think that's what we want, is like, well, I'm responsible for my experience, so this asshole shouldn't be bothering me. It's like, no, if this asshole bothers you, move, leave, get out of that environment. Mm-hmm. It's not like, it's so like, what about if it was food? It's like, I eat this food and I feel like,
terrible.
Yeah, it's like, I just shouldn't feel this way. Right. I should somehow be able to transcend this terrible experience and not let it bother me. And a lot of guys come to me, they just want to be able to tolerate more bullshit. I've actually had guys be like, I'm in this high pressure situation with these assholes. How do I get better at tolerating bullshit? And I was like, I don't want to help you tolerate bullshit. Let's get you in an environment where you feel expansive and strong. And they're like, oh, like I didn't think that was. It seems
like such a borderline, because I think it's really it's like a part of maturity to be able to handle certain amounts of bullshit, right? Or tolerate certain, like tolerate in terms of handling the discomfort that comes with a certain experience that isn't favorable, that isn't going to have, not every experience is going to have you feel aliveness or expansiveness.
Right. But it is knowing that if I don't like what's happening, why am I choosing this? Mm-hmm. Right. If I don't like what's going on in here in this moment,
over and over again.
Right. It's like, why did I choose this? There might be days where it's like, hey, I chose to get on this flight and now I'm sitting next to this person.
Right.
And they pooped their pants. That happened, right? We were sitting next to a guy. That person pooped their pants. And that was like, all right, I could sit here and it still smells like poop, and we're going to smell like poop for the next few hours. Okay. So unfortunate for that person, unfortunate for everybody, right? If I continue to seek poop airways, right? Like the poop.
I love it.
This is getting bad.
Hang on, I have some special requests for my seating.
Can you put me next to the person
that's sure that I'm really close to the toilets early in the morning?
I did that once. I flew from LA and I was right next to that was bad. But we after a while, if we just catch ourselves in this chronic state of complaining, I think that's the self-awareness comes in. It's just like, I'm noticing my discomfort. I'm noticing my frustration. I'm noticing that I always have something to complain about, and it typically involves this person or this. But it's like, why am I choosing this? I'm choosing to show up every day. And what we'll recognize is that instead of choosing what has us feel more free or alive or a peace of mind or love and connection, we're like, I don't want to be uncomfortable. I don't want to have the uncomfortable conversation where I say, hey, stop that.
Well,
I don't want to do something risky. It's like, well, if I'm not in this situation with this person, then I got to do it because this person's my boss and they're, what am I do?
And that's the thing that like, I want to point out two things that are happening here. One is that you are really being, creating a distinction. You're really pointing out the difference between that victim mindset and taking responsibility. Everything that you're saying right now is like, what if I were to take responsibility for this and I could do something here. I actually have liberty to do and choice and freedom of choice to do an action, to do something here. And the difference between that, which is what you really do. I'm always doing a great job of carrying the flag for, irritatingly so. And sometimes, and then there's also this other piece, which I think is more subversive. Not in a good way, but like more sludgy in our life experience. It's like you and I talk about our fear of like falling asleep, quote unquote, like falling asleep. So, but it's like, what if we get into the poppy fields? So an example of the poppy fields here is like, oh yeah, every job has its woes. That's just the way it is. If I have aches and pains, I feel bad. Oh, yep. Yeah, you're aging. That's just what middle age is about, or that's what old age is. You're just going to have more aches and pains.
Same shit, and different
consistently,
day.
I mean, when my back was like, at three doctors, opinions of 4 said, life will be about pain management. This is just how it is. This is what your life is like. From here forward, you're going to be working with steroid shots and eventually surgery. You just need to come to these treatments to help you manage your pain. Doctors were telling me that this is how it is. You were the only one that said, this is bullshit. We've done so many things in your life that have gone against this whole bullshit poppy field, falling asleep kind of, this is just how it is, mentality, attitude, whatever. And go find, like, keep looking until you find the answer that you want, that gives you hope. And then that 4th doctor was like, oh, you're going to be fine.
Well, we can unpack that quite a bit, because I think there's a thing of like, this is just going to be the way it is because you don't want to go through the discomfort of changing how you eat and how you move. And that's true for a lot of people. But
then no doctor, I mean, in that specific scenario, no doctor was like, only the 4th doctor was like, it's your diet. It's the movement that you need to be doing that you're not doing. It's this.
Which was true.
It's like it's these 4 things. It was totally right on.
You cleaned up your food and you started moving your body.
It was Eric Goodman's foundations training. So,
and you were out of pain pretty quickly.
Yep.
Yeah.
For sure. And like able to stay out of pain.
I think there's a part of the victim mentality which is like that enjoys being powerless. It enjoys there's a little bit of righteousness of like, woe is me. This is my problem. I identify as I've been wronged. Life just didn't. There's just an injustice here, and I get to be in my place where I'm in my injustice. And I think when we hear those types of things, we have a response. There's a part of just like, fuck that. Or it's, oh, great. I'm off the hook now. I don't have to try. I can always blame something else.
Yeah. And from a therapeutic perspective,
this is just the way it is. My back's messed up. So I'm going to be on the couch here with a bag of Oreos. Like, it's just like, I'm off the hook. I don't have to take care of myself.
Well, from a therapeutic perspective, like the love affair is the attachment or the desire to be taken care of. Often it's like, this is how I get my needs met. Okay. And from your perspective, coaching perspective, getting your shit done and getting the life that you want in the world perspective is, you go get your needs met. You figure out that you got needs here that need to get met, but they don't get met this way. You got to grow up here.
Right. I won't work with victims. They're just not coachable. Yeah. A victim will show up to a coaching session and want to spend the entire time telling me why things can't happen.
So and
building a case.
Sounds like excuses.
Yeah. And it's just like, okay, that's not coaching. right? A coaching conversation is, what are we doing? Where are we? What's happening? Where do we want to be? Okay, let's backtrack. What's happening here? Okay, what do you think is in the way? How can we address that? What actions are you going to take? When are you going to do that? That's a coaching conversation. Not, why don't you tell me all the reasons why you have to stay stuck? That's not coaching. That's bitching.
Right.
So I just don't work with those people. And I don't think those people want to change. They just want the validation that there's a righteousness of like, see, I'm stuck. And I get to stay stuck.
But you usually screen them out beforehand, but there can be points in your coaching where you realize like, oh, they're not turning towards the discomfort here. They really don't want to.
They don't want to. Some people, I think, just want to stay in their stuff.
Which is different than just like not wanting, like you don't want to because you don't want to. Like, I'm trying to provide the nuance of like, nobody wants to turn towards their discomfort. That's actually we talk about that reptilian brain. Like that's a pretty natural, like that's helped us stay alive.
Yeah. I like that you're bringing that up, but if you come back to the commitments, right? It's like, this is where I'm comfortable. I may not be like comfortable in my body because I have pain, or I might not be comfortable in this relationship because there's pain, but this is where I'm comfortable as a person. I know how to wake up every day and find the things that are going wrong and then talk about it all day.
Yeah.
Or, look in the mirror and wonder why I've been so forsaken. Like that's just what they know. And it's part of their self-image. It's part of their identity. If you start to take that away, it's like, who am I if I'm not been wronged? Right. Who am I if the world isn't against me? It's really uncomfortable. Right. And I can really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Before I started going to therapy, I was considered myself an artist. I was a songwriter, and there was that little voice in my head. It's like, well, if you heal this thing because your mother died and killed herself, like, are you going to be an artist anymore?
Right. I do remember there was a period I think it was in Boulder, and you were like, I've come to realize that all of my songwriting comes from this like morbid sort of like maudlin place that I go into, and I haven't been feeling that. And I can't write a song right now. I can't.
Well, it was very melancholy, and there was an addiction to that melancholy. It was like, oh, these are sad chords, and these are sad this, and it was like, I'm done with it.
Yeah.
And it was great to just be like, okay, well, I don't want to be miserable just so I can create art.
Yeah.
And I had to learn how to.
There was a choice point there. You were like, I think I need to go find something.
But that was more, I think that was more egoic. I think that was more egoic of like, well, who am I if I'm not writing songs and creating songs?
I appreciate that that's how you're looking at it, but I look at it as like, that's part of the limited lens. Like you're just working with what you got. So it's like, well, this is the house that I'm in when I write songs. So I just need to find that house again with those walls. And like, I can't write a song outside this house. And this is what I know.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. And I don't want to go outside of what I know.
And
even
a lot
if
of
I'm
people
not
are
happy.
like, I don't even know we talked about our child growing up and how she does, there's like this whole thing. Like we realized like, oh, she has no concept of what growing up is like or what she just has she's not in touch at all with what life.
Right. What it could be. Right.
So why would she be excited for that?
Right.
So how do you work with people to help them? Like you say that you give them like little baby step kind of bite-sized.
Well, the first thing is to come back to what do you want? Like, what do you want more than just being comfortable? What do you want more than just feeling safe? Right. Well, I would find the thing that they're holding on to. Like they've got to be, we talked about it a couple episodes, that fuck it moment of like, fuck it. I'm tired of being in this place. That's when folks are coachable. Like, okay, I'm open. I'm actually looking for solutions now instead of looking for something to blame. As long as I've got something to blame, then I don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
So if they've gotten to this point where they're like, fuck it, I can't blame the world anymore for whatever it is. But I'm not quite sure what the next thing that I want, then we can start working. Then we can get curious and say, let's start experimenting with things and start to move beyond that and start to see, instead of settling for comfort and this false sense of safety and making sure you look good all the time, that we come back to say, well, what is it that you want more than those things? Like deeply, you talk about where we started the conversation, where it's like, what do you want that's deeper than that false sense of security?
So do you have, is that the practice that you invite them into as a guidance system, like it becomes a system. Like for you, you've got it systematized in your life. You're literally always, and we know we've discussed in other episodes, like sort of the deeper cuts of that for you and your psyche. But like in terms of like how we orient, it seems, I'm not in your coaching call, so I have no idea what you do, but it seems to me that the people, you have a lot of success stories. Like the people that you work with get to what you've written about in this book. They start doing it and experiencing it and having it in their lives. And so I'm imagining that you, beyond this, like, oh, let's just do some experiments, that you begin to cultivate this concept as a guidance system. Is that true?
No.
You just,
Yes. A big part of our work is to come back to what are we really playing for? Most of us don't really know what we're playing for. We've been in that prey mentality. We've been in that survival mentality. And we thought that if we just got really good at avoiding discomfort, we thought if we got really good at avoiding risk and looking good, looking impressive to ourselves, then we'd be set. That's what the unconscious belief is like, then I'll feel fulfilled. And then they usually create some level of this, quote, success. And they've got all this comfort. They've created all this safety in their lives. They can have a bunch of money in the bank, or they can actually live in a place that has walls around it, or a neighborhood that has walls around it.
Yeah, right.
They can have all this stuff where people are like, man, I mean, one day I want to be you. They can have that stuff and be like, why am I not feeling fulfilled? What's wrong with me? I thought it would be different. And that's where we got to do a little digging to help them see, like, what is it that you're really playing for? Instead of just being really...
I thought I was playing for all these things, but I'm not having the experiences that I
Well,
thought
that's
went
the
with
unconscious belief. Like if you just look at all of our... I hate to get into this kind of... It's about marketing or whatever, but it's like, it really is this idea that marketing companies and religions...
I'm totally withheld from saying all this about consumerism.
Well, it's in fairy tales, there's always this happily ever after aspect to it.
Or you need this skin cream to be the beautiful person that you are.
Well, whatever. Religion does it, right? If you just follow these rules, all your problems are over. And if you fuck it up, boy, are you really...
Sinner.
Yeah, you're going to hell. So it's just indoctrinated into our life that there is a magical finish line. And when we reach this place where we thought was the finish line and it doesn't pan out, the experience of being there doesn't align with what we thought it was going to be, we can start to think that we're ungrateful. Like, what's wrong with me? So many guys would be grateful to have my life. Yeah. They'd love to have their marriage I'm in, or they'd love to be able to have the job I have or the business I have. And what's wrong with me? They come up. It's like, why am I such an ungrateful dick? We get stuck into that. So I think that's a whole other conversation. I think we should go into it. What are we playing for beyond just wanting to be comfortable and safe and looking good? That'd be a good place to dive into next time.
Well, I know you're trying to wrap this up, but I do. I just like this feels like such a.
It's like we're performing on stage and we just hit the final note and you're like, hold on,
wait a second. I have a solo.
I like this other song.
Well, it's some bands are like that too. But here I just want to say something. You're speaking about, like, you took this out of your book, but when you were describing that comfort level, like, I totally saw that, like, a turtle that, like, there's this, like, I'm just going to hang out in my shell. I've created this perfect shell. And so anytime I encounter anything that feels like a threat, I'll just withdraw into my shell. And then I can peek out, and then I can take a couple of steps towards this leaf or whatever. And then I'm going to crawl back in my shell. And so, but my point is you just described that. And what I see and hear you saying this whole conversation is that you're like looking way beyond that. Like you're like, no, we don't hang out here. If you want the experience of aliveness or freedom or love or peace in your life, you don't get to hang out here anymore. Like this isn't where you're going to find it.
No, it's a choice. Like we need a certain amount of comfort and safety and acceptance. That's not going away. Those are needs that we have. The false idea is that if we just had more comfort, more safety, the illusion of safety, more importance, then we'll feel fulfilled. But it's a bell curve. After a certain point, we actually start to become fragile. When we get too much, we get too attached to discomfort and too attached to this idea of safety and too attached to importance. We go the other way. Look at like people that with some of these diva type celebrities, all the comfort, all the safety, and they got security teams around them, and they got people that are kissing their ass 24/7. And it's like, oh, I didn't get this, and they have a meltdown, right? That's not strong.
Yeah.
Right. That's a trap. You've just your world has gotten so small that you can't handle any of these types of threats. You can't go take care of yourself. You can't just walk out on the street and go get a coffee if you want it because you're so damn fragile. So the point I want to make is that yes, I love comfort. Yeah, Look at our home, right? Totally. I love safety. I want us to be safe. There are measures that we take to be safe in our world. And I also love being important. I love being important to you and to be, but also I love feeling like what I'm doing is important into the world. It's a big part of what has me feel fulfilled. So I want to be really clear. We're not taking a shit on those things. We're not going to play all one or all the other. It's recognizing that becomes the home base. We can always come back to those things. Okay, if I get really stretched and I'm really uncomfortable, I can always come back to where I'm comfortable and then ease into that discomfort again. If I feel really out of place and really at risk, I can always come back to where I feel safe. And if I feel like I'm, really stuck my neck out there too much and I might look weird, like to come back to where you're comfortable. We need that stuff. It helps us be strong out in the world. We just have to knock down this idea that if we're not feeling fulfilled, I must need more comfort. I must need more shit to buy. I must need more importance. I must need more safety. That's the trap. Uh-huh. And that's where I see where these guys are like, they're caught on this treadmill of more, and they're buying and indulging in things that they don't really just need anymore. And they just feel more and more empty. Mm-hmm. And that's where they're really lost. It's like, wow. And then there's also the younger guys that are coming up and they see that. They're smart enough to see that. And like, I don't want to get on that path. So it's coming back and trying to find this middle way and understanding that, quote, success or more comfort, safety and looking good, important status isn't really the game. It's just the starting point to go play for what we truly want.
One of my questions that I was really wanting to ask you, just on my list of questions that I have for you, was like, why did you choose the title that this book will make you dangerous? Why did you choose the word dangerous? Because I know that at least in the world, in the state, in the part of the world that I live in, that's a common word that's used to basically keep people quiet and down and like shut up and just ashamed enough.
You call them dangerous to keep them down?
Keep them small. Yeah. Oh, that's dangerous. Don't do that. That's dangerous. Oh. So from the perspective of like dangerous meaning not safe, dangerous meaning a threat,
you need
dangerous
new friends.
Meaning. But that's what I mean. It's like that mentality. You can't possibly do that. You'll get thrown in jail or you'll get whatever.
Well, that's it, right? So in our cushy, privileged, I mean, look how cushy and privileged life has gotten for so many. I just finished watching this World War II documentary. Yeah. It was over, 10 hours. And it's just like, oh my God, we need to be in touch with how things were just even 80 plus years ago. My grandfather's generation, right? Like we've gotten so self-absorbed and we've adapted so much to this level of comfort and quote safety and self-importance that it's gotten skewed. The perspective is a little skewed. Do we still have problems? Do we have major problems? Yes, we most certainly do. But for most of us in our day-to-day life, what constitutes dangerous, that might be uncomfortable. Oh, that might rattle.
It does create false anxiety, like all sorts of anxiety.
It creates anxiety, depression. But that's the point, is like starting to push through those things. And that's why I call the book "This Will Make You Dangerous," because it seems dangerous to go do the things that might make us a little uncomfortable, or might seem like a risk to our time or energy or money. Or, oh my gosh, what would somebody think of me if I actually asked that question or went into that, had a conversation about this stuff? That's what so many of us are thinking is, quote, dangerous these days. And when we hold it up, most of us don't like to think that we're that fragile and we've gotten that fragile. But the truth is we have.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Like that's your book is the title that it really redefines dangerous in a positive light. Instead of like, don't do that. You're reclaiming you're giving me this look. Oh my God. I wish I could describe this look right now. I'm telling you, I like the name, and it's like I'm getting it now. Because I didn't get it before. I was like, why would you use that word? And now I'm getting like, oh, because when you play for what you really want, there are hardly limits in your experience.
But it will seem dangerous to that part of us, that small part of us that's completely consumed with our quote survival. That is that prey mentality in us that we don't even know that's steering us. We can be in a prey mentality, drive a BMW, and drink $6 lattes every day, and then wonder how we're, quote, going to survive.
It's true.
Right? Like, absolutely. Oh my God, how am I going to get through this thing? Like, we really think the world is going to come crashing to the ground. So it's speaking to that part of us and helping us realize that that's not all of who we are. If these interviews are helping you, please leave a positive review on whatever podcast app you use so that others can discover the show more easily.